The planet of Veralia sparkled under two suns, its cities gleaming like crystals against the soft purple haze of the sky. Towering buildings of glass and metal rose high, while hovering vehicles zipped smoothly through the air. The Verelians, a species known for their elegance and sharp minds, moved with grace and confidence, proud of their advanced technology and intricate social rituals. Yet, among all this beauty and order, one figure seemed quietly out of place. Kale, the human, walked beside Lyra with calm steps, his dark eyes observing everything without comment. His silence was as striking as his appearance, not tall, not muscular, not adorned with flashy devices. Yet there was a stillness in him that drew Lyra's attention every time. Lyra had been chosen to marry. Kale is part of a diplomatic alliance between humans and Verelians. Many of her peers had whispered behind her back about the silent human she was to wed. He does nothing, speaks little, and looks fragile, one Verelian had said. How can he possibly survive in our world? But Lyra had noticed things others overlooked. In the week she had spent with Kale, she had seen him notice details no one else seemed to care about. He watched the patterns of hovering vehicles, calculated distances in seconds, and even repaired a malfunctioning communication device without needing instructions. When Lyra asked him how he did it, he only smiled faintly and said nothing. Today, they walked through the central plaza of Verelia City. Crowds bustled around them, merchants selling luminous fruits, and children chasing small floating drones. Lyra could feel the curious eyes of the crowd on Kale. She sensed their doubt. He is so quiet, a Verelian woman whispered to her friend. Does he even understand us? Lyra ignored the whispers. Instead, she focused on Kale. He stooped briefly to help a small child who had dropped a glowing toy. No words, just a careful hand and a kind glance. The child smiled and Kale nodded slightly before standing again. He notices everything, Lyra said quietly to herself, and he acts without arrogance. That is rare here. As they moved toward the palace, Kale's gaze lingered on the horizon. Lyra followed his eyes and saw a cluster of ships descending slowly, their shapes unfamiliar. A ripple of unease passed through the plaza as citizens paused to watch. Verelian guards hurried to the palace gates, their movements precise but tense. Do you see that? Lyra asked softly, her voice tinged with worry. Kale turned his eyes to hers, calm as ever, and nodded. No words. That alone was unsettling to the Verelians, who relied on constant communication to understand their world. But Lyra felt a strange comfort in his silence. It was as if he understood something others could not. Inside the palace, the grand hall shimmered with light from crystalline chandeliers. Officials and diplomats were gathered for a welcoming ceremony. Lyra walked beside Kale, her hand brushing lightly against his arm. Some guests gave polite nods, others stared in disbelief at the human who had dared to step into their world. A Verelian diplomat approached, his long robes flowing as he spoke in a measured tone. Kale, do you understand the significance of this union? You are entering a world that is very different from your own. You must learn our ways quickly. Kale tilted his head slightly, meeting the diplomat's gaze. Then, in the quietest voice Lyra had ever heard from him, he said, I will learn. The diplomat frowned, unsure if he had understood. He speaks, Lyra whispered, smiling softly. Kale nodded again, silent but firm. As the ceremony began, Lyra noticed how Kale moved with unusual awareness. While other guests adjusted their robes and focused on appearances, Kale's eyes scanned every corner, every movement, every detail. He seemed to see more than anyone else, noticing small cracks in the floor, the angle of light hitting the walls, even the subtle shift in a guard's stance. Lyra realized that his silence was not weakness. It was focus. In a world that valued speed, chatter, and display, Kale's quiet observation was a secret strength. After the ceremony, Lyra led Kale through the palace gardens, a sprawling space of alien flora with glowing flowers and softly humming trees. The air was fragrant, but beneath the beauty, there was a tension that Lyra could not ignore. Something about the city felt uneasy today. You seem to know something, Lyra said, glancing at him. Kale looked at her, expression calm. He reached down to a small stream where alien fish shimmered in the water and touched the surface gently, creating ripples that reflected the sunlight. "I sense change," he said softly. "Something is coming." Lyra felt a shiver run down her spine. Most humans would have seemed fragile in a place like this. But Kale's words carried weight even without explanation. That evening, as the suns dipped below the horizon and the sky turned a deep violet, Lyra prepared for the private dinner held in their honor. The palace staff had arranged a table of rare fruits, glowing wines, and dishes that shimmered with energy. Guests were polite, but their eyes kept drifting to Kale, studying his every move. He ate slowly, deliberately, as if measuring each bite. And Lyra noticed that he did not waste a moment on idle conversation. Yet there was a sense of peace around him that no Varelian could imitate. It was quiet power, subtle but undeniable. Suddenly, alarms blared in the city. The ground shook slightly, and distant lights flickered. Lyra's heart raced as she grabbed Kale's arm. "What is happening?" she asked, panic rising in her voice. Kale did not speak at first. He listened, his head tilting, analyzing the vibrations and sounds. Then he stood, calm and collected. "Stay close to me," he said simply. Chaos erupted outside. Guards ran, citizens screamed, and floating patrol drones moved erratically. Lyra clutched Kale's hand as they made their way to the main observation deck. From there she could see a fleet of strange ships descending rapidly, their energy shields glowing ominously. Vielian officials shouted orders, trying to organize defenses. Lyra's mind raced. This was more than a minor disturbance. The city was under attack. Yet Kale's presence was grounding. Even amidst the panic, his calmness was a beacon. "They underestimate us," he said quietly. "We can fight smart. We can survive." Lyra looked at him astonished. This human, silent and small in appearance, radiated a confidence she had never seen in Varelians of any rank. How can you be so sure?" she asked. Kale did not answer immediately. He moved to the edge of the observation deck, studying the incoming ships as if reading a story written in light and motion. Then he simply said, "Because humans do not give up. We find a way." The words were simple, but they carried a truth that echoed in Lyra's heart. All her doubts about Caltha, whispers, the mockery, the disbelief, vanished. She realized that what the Varelians saw as weakness was actually something stronger. Patience, focus, and courage that did not need to be shouted or displayed. As the first ships entered the city's perimeter, Kale turned to her eyes, calm and determined. "Whatever happens," he said, "we face it together. Watch, learn, act." Lyra nodded, feeling a newfound respect and admiration for the human she had married. The world outside was changing, but in that moment, she understood that Kale was not just her husband. He was something extraordinary, hidden beneath quiet eyes and measured steps. Force that could shift the balance of entire civilizations. And as the sky above Varelia blazed with incoming energy, Lyra realized that her life and, perhaps the fate of the planet, was about to change forever. The city of Varelia had never known fear like this. From the observation deck, Lyra watched the strange ships descend, their designs unlike anything she had seen before. Sharp, angular forms glowing with an eerie green light. Panic rippled through the streets. Citizens fled in every direction, their voices rising in a chaotic chorus of alarm and confusion. Lyra's heart pounded as she held Kale's hand. The human's grip was firm, steady, unshaken by the chaos around them. "We need to move to the command center," Kale said quietly, his voice low but commanding in a way that made Lyra feel safer. She followed him through the twisting corridors of the palace, past servants and guards who were scrambling to respond. The alarms blared, red lights casting harsh shadows across the walls. Lyra had never seen Kale so purposeful, so in control. Every step, every movement seemed deliberate, as though he had already anticipated every possible danger. Outside, the first wave of alien ships began firing energy beams at the city's defense turrets. Explosions rocked the streets, sending shards of metal and glass into the air. Citizens screamed and ran, but the turrets, designed for precise defense, struggled against the unfamiliar alien technology when they reached the command center. Varelian officials were already trying to coordinate a response. Holographic maps floated in the air, showing the invading fleet in red, the city's defenses in blue. Lyra could feel the tension radiating from every officer. Orders were shouted, calculations made, but the results were slow. The aliens moved unpredictably, dodging attacks and striking at weak points. Kale stepped forward, unnoticed at first. He examined the holographic map, his eyes sharp and focused. "Their patterns are not random," he said softly. "They move according to a rhythm. Watch closely. They overextend here, here, and here." The officials turned to him, startled. "Who? What are you?" one of them asked, his voice tinged with disbelief. "I am human," Kale replied simply. "And humans survive by seeing patterns others miss." Lyra felt a surge of pride. That quiet, underestimated human, her husband, was about to show the Varelians what they could not see. Kale moved closer to the control panels, guiding the operators. "Shift turret 5 to the upper angle. Divert energy to Sector C. Wait for their next move, then fire in bursts, not constant streams." The officers hesitated, uncertain. They had never received orders from a human, and the confidence in Kale's tone was unsettling. Yet they saw the logic in his commands. Slowly, carefully, they followed his instructions. The next wave of alien ships approached, faster and more aggressive. The turrets fired, energy beams lancing into the sky. To the shock of everyone in the command center, the first alien ship faltered. Its shields flickered, and then collapsed. Another followed, then another. "It's working," one officer muttered, disbelief in his voice. Kale's eyes remained calm. "What?" "Yes. Watch, learn, adapt." The Varelian officers began to move more confidently, taking Kale's guidance seriously. He did not speak loudly, did not shout orders. He only observed, calculated, and gave precise instructions. Slowly, the tide of battle began to shift. Lyra watched him with awe. She had always admired his quiet strength, but now she realized it was something far greater than mere calmness. Kale had a mind that could see patterns, anticipate danger, and act decisively. While the Varelians relied on technology and speed, Kale relied on observation and understanding, a combination no one had expected. Outside, the city shook again, as a larger alien ship descended, its size dwarfing the turrets. Its energy shields pulsed, reflecting the sun's light. The officers panicked, unsure if their weapons could penetrate such defenses. Kale leaned over the control panel, tracing the movement of the massive ship. "It has a blind spot here," he said, pointing at a thin strip along its hull. "If we strike there with coordinated bursts, we can disable the shields." The officers exchanged nervous glances. "Can you guarantee it?" one asked. Kale shook his head. "Nothing is guaranteed. But humans do not rely on guarantees. We rely on strategy, speed, and courage." Lyra felt her chest tighten. The city depended on Kale now. Not just her, not just the palace officials, but every citizen watching in fear. And he did not falter. His silence, which others had scorned, had become a weapon. As the alien ship moved into position, Kale gave precise timing instructions. The turrets fired in bursts, energy beams striking the weak points he had identified. The shields flickered, then collapsed. The massive ship shuddered as internal systems failed. Citizens outside paused, watching as the impossible seemed to unfold. A cheer rose from the command center, but Kale did not celebrate. He simply observed the next wave of ships, ready for the next challenge. Lyra turned to him, her voice trembling. "How? How are you doing this?" Kale looked at her with calm eyes. "I see what others do not. I think when others act. I am not stronger, not faster, but I understand. Humans survive because we adapt. We never stop learning." The battle continued through the evening. Alien ships struck repeatedly, but Kale guided the defenses with precision. The city's turrets under his direction began to anticipate the attackers' moves. Alien ships faltered, some retreating, others destroyed. Slowly, the Varelians. began to understand that the human they had underestimated was extraordinary. By nightfall, the plaza outside the palace was littered with remnants of alien craft, their green lights extinguished. Citizens emerged cautiously, amazed at the outcome. Lyra walked with Kale through the streets, seeing the stunned faces of those who had doubted him. "They called you weak," she said softly, "but you saved the city." Kale's lips curved into a faint smile. "Strength is not always what they see. It is patience, observation, and knowing when to act." Lyra felt a warmth in her chest. She realized that the Varelian's judgment had been based on appearances. Kale's quiet demeanor had hidden his intelligence, skill, and courage. Now those who had mocked him could only watch in silent awe. As they returned to the palace, Kale paused to look at the stars. The alien fleet was not gone. Far above, other ships lingered, observing. Lyra could feel the tension returning. The battle had been won, but the war might not be over. Kale turned to her, his expression steady. "This is only the beginning," he said. "We will face more, but we will survive. Humans always find a way." Lyra nodded, feeling a mixture of fear and hope. She had married a silent man, one who spoke little and seemed fragile. But now she understood. His silence was not weakness. It was a shield, a focus, a power that no one had anticipated. And when the time came, he would have canned, everything would change. That night, as the city slept uneasily, Lyra stayed awake, thinking about Kale. She had expected a quiet husband, someone she could care for but not rely upon in battle or danger. Instead, she had found a partner who could change the fate of a city with his mind. His courage and his calm resolve. The world outside was unpredictable, full of danger and uncertainty. But Lyra knew one truth. With Kale by her side, her humanity was not just surviving in the galaxy. It was beginning to show its true might. And somewhere beyond the stars, other watchers observed the humans. They had underestimated them once. They would not make the same mistake again. The night over Varelia was filled with tension. The city had survived the first attack, but the alien threat was far from over. From the palace balcony, Lyra looked at the horizon, where green lights of distant ships flickered like ominous fireflies. She could feel the unease in the air, a silent warning that danger was still near. Kale stood beside her, calm as ever, his dark eyes scanning the city. His hands rested lightly at his sides. But Lyra sensed an energy beneath that quiet exterior, a power waiting to be unleashed. Suddenly, alarms blared again. This time the intruders were closer, faster, and more aggressive. Massive alien ships hovered over the palace itself, their energy beams striking the outer walls. The ground shook with each impact. Citizens ran for cover, and the palace guards scrambled to respond. Yet in the chaos, Kale remained unmoved, observing, calculating. Lyra gripped his arm. "Kale, the palace can't hold them." "What can we do?" He looked at her calmly. "Sometimes defense is not enough. Sometimes you must act directly." Before Lyra could ask what he meant, Kale turned and entered the palace armory. The room was vast, filled with weapons and artifacts from centuries of human and Varelian history. Lyra followed, confused. Kale's hand moved to a small, unassuming case at the corner of the room. With careful precision, he opened it, revealing a sword unlike any Lyra had seen. Its blade shimmered with a faint silver light, and intricate patterns of unknown energy ran along its length. The hilt seemed simple, but when Kale held it, the sword seemed to hum softly, as if alive. Lyra's breath caught. What is that?" she asked. Kale did not answer immediately. He lifted the sword, testing its balance. Then finally he spoke. "It is a human relic. Forged long ago, before humans spread to other worlds. It is more than a weapon, it is a tool. A focus for skill, strategy, and strength. It responds to its wielder, but only if the wielder is worthy." Lyra stared at him in astonishment. She had known humans were clever and adaptable, but this was something different. Kale, who had seemed so fragile, now held an object of power with complete confidence. Outside, the alien ships pressed closer, their energy beams striking the palace walls. Kale turned to Lyra, his face calm. "Stay behind me," he said. "Watch and learn. What you see may change everything." With that, he stepped onto the palace balcony, the sword gleaming in his hands. The aliens did not move at first, perhaps underestimating him, as they had done with humans before. But then one ship fired directly at him. Kale did not flinch. He raised the sword, and a thin arc of energy extended from the blade, deflecting the beam harmlessly into the night sky. Lyra gasped. He blocked it. Kale's eyes were focused, calculating each movement, predicting the trajectory of the next attack. Another beam came, faster, wider. He stepped lightly, swinging the sword in a precise arc. The beam shattered against it, scattering into fragments of green light. Then, he leapt down to the ground, moving with agility and precision that seemed impossible for a human. Alien drones fired at him, but he dodged with exact timing, striking each one with the sword before it could reach him. Sparks flew, energy discharged, and the air around him crackled with the force of his movements. Lyra ran to a safe distance, watching, stunned. The Varelian guards tried to intervene, but they were slow, clumsy compared to Kale's speed and precision. Every step he took was measured, every strike deliberate. In minutes, several drones were destroyed, remainder retreating in confusion. Kale's silence was now filled with action. His sword moved as if it had a mind of its own, responding to him with perfect harmony. Each attack from the aliens was countered. Each strategy they used turned against them. The palace walls shook, but the intruders could not advance. A massive alien commander emerged from one of the ships, its armor glowing and its movements powerful. It descended onto the balcony, towering over Kale. The Varelians gasped at the sight of the alien size and strength. Yet Kale did not hesitate. He raised the sword and faced the commander directly. The alien struck first, a sweeping blow aimed to crush him. Kale moved with the fluidity of water, stepping aside and countering with a precise strike that left a mark on the alien's armor. The commander roared, its eyes glowing, and struck again. Kale's sword met every attack, deflecting, blocking, and striking in patterns the Varelians could barely follow. Lyra's heart raced. She realized that this was not just skill, it was human ingenuity in action. Kale did not rely on brute strength. He relied on understanding, timing, and creativity. He turned the alien's power against itself, using its momentum to create openings. Striking with precision that no Varelian could match, the fight continued across the palace grounds. Kale moved swiftly, avoiding destruction while protecting the citizens nearby. Every alien attack was met with a human response, calculated and effective. Lyra noticed something else. Kale's calmness was infectious. The Varelian guards who had watched from a distance began to coordinate better, inspired by his confidence and clarity. At one point, the commander lunged directly at him. Kale met the attack, using the sword to redirect the alien's force. The impact sent them both tumbling across the plaza, but Kale rose quickly, landing with perfect balance. He struck again, this time disabling the alien's weapon systems. The remaining drones faltered, unsure what to do without guidance. The commander, realizing its advantage was gone, retreated with a roar. The alien fleet above hesitated, breaking formation. Slowly, they withdrew, leaving the city in relative safety for the moment. Lyra ran to Kale, her eyes wide with admiration. I've never seen anything like that," she exclaimed. Kale lowered the sword, breathing evenly. "It is not the sword alone. It is observation, understanding, and action. Humans survive because we combine these. We adapt, and we fight when necessary, not for glory, but for survival and protection." The city's citizens began to emerge from hiding, their faces filled with awe and gratitude. They had seen the impossible, a human, quiet and underestimated, defending them against a technologically superior enemy. Murmurs spread through the streets. "He is incredible. He is not weak." Lyra placed a hand on Kale's shoulder. "You saved more than the palace. You saved hope." Kale looked at her, eyes steady. "Hope is only the first step. We must be ready. This attack was only the beginning. The palace council arrived, expressions a mix of respect and disbelief. "Kale," one elder said, bowing slightly, "your actions. They were beyond anything we imagined. How? How did you achieve this?" Kale smiled faintly. "By thinking, observing, and acting. The aliens are strong, but not perfect. They underestimate what they do not understand. Humans, too, were underestimated. That will not happen again."
Ayala
Watched as the council members nodded, slowly recognizing the truth in his words. The human they had doubted, mocked, and overlooked had become the hero of the city in a single night. Later, as the suns began to rise, Kale returned the sword to its case. He moved with quiet dignity, but Lyra knew something had changed. The city had seen human might. They had seen what a silent human could do when calm, clever, determined, and Lyra realized that she was witnessing more than just skill in battle. She was witnessing the essence of humanity, resilience, courage, and ingenuity that could challenge even the most advanced alien forces. That night, as the city recovered and the first light of dawn glimmered on the shattered remnants of alien drones, Lyra stayed close to Kale. She had married a silent human, unsure of what he could offer. Now she understood. His silence was a shield, his mind a weapon, his courage a force that could change the galaxy. The sky above Varelia was calm. But Lyra knew the universe beyond it was not. More threats would come, more challenges awaited. Yet with Kale by her side, humanity was no longer underestimated. It was ready to show its true might, and in that quiet, determined strength, Lyra saw the beginning of a story that would be remembered for generations. A silent human, a mysterious sword, and the courage to change everything. The morning after the battle, Varelia City was quiet, but the calm was fragile. The streets were filled with citizens cautiously emerging from their homes, examining the damage left by the alien assault. Smoke curled from broken vehicles, and shattered drones littered the plaza. Yet amidst the chaos, a sense of hope lingered. The people had seen what one human silent, focused, and unyielding could accomplish. Lyra walked alongside Kale through the city streets. Though she expected celebration, she saw worry in the faces of Varelians. Rumors of alien attacks elsewhere in the galaxy spread quickly. The people needed guidance, but for the first time, Lyra realized that humans might provide the clarity they had been missing. Kale's eyes scanned the city, analyzing the aftermath. "This was only a test," he said quietly. "They sent a small force to see how we would respond. A larger threat may come," Lyra frowned. "Why would they test us first? Why not strike fully?" Kale's gaze turned toward the distant horizon, where a few remaining alien ships hovered. "They underestimated humans. They assumed we would panic or be destroyed quickly. Now they know differently. But we must act before the next wave." Lyra nodded, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders. She had married a human who was extraordinary in ways she could not yet fully understand. And now, she would need to help him prepare the city for what was to come. They returned to the palace, where the council had gathered. Varelian leaders, once skeptical of Kale, now looked at him with cautious respect. Some whispered among themselves. Others openly asked for his guidance. Kale did not hesitate. He studied the holographic maps, tracing the movements of alien fleets, noting the vulnerabilities in the city's defenses. "We cannot fight blindly," he said. "We must plan. Every alien attack has a rhythm, a weakness. If we anticipate, adapt, and strike precisely, we can protect the city and more." One council member, an elder named Thalen, nodded slowly. "You speak wisely, human. Your methods are different. But perhaps they are what we need." Kale gave a faint nod of acknowledgement. Difference is often underestimated. Humans survive by noticing what others do not see, by using thought as a weapon. Lyra watched the council as Kale spoke. Their doubt was turning into curiosity, then into cautious trust. She could see the spark of hope returning to the city through his words. And yet Kale knew that words alone would not be enough. They needed allies, strategy, and understanding beyond what the Varelians had previously considered. That evening, Kale and Lyra ventured to the palace archives, a vast repository of information from across the galaxy. Ancient scrolls, digital records, and relics of countless civilizations lined the walls. Kale's hand traced the edge of a dusty, holographic projector. He activated it, and a map of the known galaxy flickered into life. "Look here," Kale said, pointing to clusters of alien movements. "The fleet we faced is part of a larger force. They are targeting planets with human settlements first. They fear what humans can do, yet they do not understand our capabilities. We can use this." Lyra studied the map, feeling a mixture of fear and determination. "We need allies," she said. "If this force is galaxy-wide, one city cannot hold it alone." Kale nodded. "Agreed, but allies must see clearly. They must understand humans are not weak. Only then can we inspire them to act together." Over the next days, Kale began training the palace guards, not just in combat, but in observation, strategy, and improvisation. He taught them to see patterns in enemy movements, anticipate attacks, and act decisively. At first, the Varelian soldiers were skeptical. They had relied on technology and strength, not patience and strategy. But under Kale's quiet instruction, they began to understand. Lyra watched as Kale demonstrated simple drills, anticipating the fall of a training drone, redirecting energy blasts, and even predicting where another soldier would move. The guards, at first clumsy, soon moved with surprising coordination. It was not brute strength they gained, it was clarity of thought and confidence. One afternoon, while Kale was training the soldiers, Lyra discovered a hidden chamber beneath the palace. Ancient Varelian records detailed alliances, past battles, and warnings about the alien factions. Kale joined her in studying the documents. "These texts confirm my suspicions," he said. "This faction has been observing humanity for decades. They see us as unpredictable. That fear is their weakness. We can use it to unite others who have also been underestimated." "You're saying we can turn their fear against them?" Kale nodded. "Yes, humans are often underestimated, but when we act, we do so with creativity, courage, and intelligence. That combination can inspire others and change the course of battles before they begin." Their plan began to take shape. Kale would travel to neighboring planets with Lyra, showing human ingenuity in action. They would form alliances not through fear, but through demonstration of capability, strategy, and trust. Slowly, humans would no longer be seen as fragile. They would be recognized as formidable. Word of Kale's victory spread quickly across Varelia. Citizens who had once doubted humans now spoke of him with reverence. Children played at copying his precise movements, soldiers practiced his drills. And even the council began to implement his strategies across the city. One evening, Lyra and Kale returned to the balcony to watch the stars. She felt a deep admiration for the human she had married. "You've changed everything," she said softly. "Not just the city, but how they see humanity." Kale's gaze was steady, focused on the distant horizon. "It is only the beginning. Many will still doubt us, but humans do not rely on doubt or belief. We rely on action, intelligence, and perseverance. That is what makes us strong." Lyra smiled, feeling the weight of hope and responsibility. The city had survived, yes, but the galaxy was vast and full of threats. Kale had not only saved Varelia once, he was preparing it and humanity for a much larger role. The following week, Kale organized a council of allies. He invited other species, leaders, and strategists who were willing to learn, to watch, and to act. He demonstrated human tactics, combining simple strategy with quick thinking. Every participant saw how humans could adapt, improvise, and overcome superior technology with clever methods. By the end of the sessions, the alliance began to form. Skeptics became supporters, doubters became learners, and humans gained recognition not through force alone, but through intellect, courage, and skill. Kale's quiet determination had changed perceptions in ways that no single victory could, but even as the alliance strengthened, Kale remained vigilant. "We cannot become complacent," he he reminded Lyra. The alien faction will learn from their mistakes. They will strike again. We must prepare, always. Lyra nodded, feeling a deep sense of trust and admiration. She had married a silent human, one who had seemed ordinary, perhaps even fragile. Yet now she understood Cale was extraordinary. His mind, his courage, his vision were the kind of power that could rally civilizations and face the galaxy's greatest threats. At night, as the city slept, Lyra watched Cale stand on the balcony, sword at his side. He was silent, yes, but no longer underestimated. The people around him, the Varelians, the Alliance members, they had begun to see what she had known all along. Humans were not weak. Humans were clever, resilient, and capable of shaping destiny. And as Lyra watched him, she realized the truth. The real battle was not just against alien fleets, but against the doubt that had kept humans underestimated for so long. With Cale leading, that doubt was ending. Humanity's time to shine, to prove its strength, had only just begun. The galaxy stretched endlessly before them, vast and dark, dotted with distant stars that seemed to watch silently. From Varelia's command station, Lyra and Cale observed the approaching alien fleet. This was not the small force they had faced before. Hundreds of massive ships moved in tight formation, energy shields glowing ominously. Their destination, Varelia, and every human settlement in the sector. Lyra felt a chill. The city had survived before, but this time the stakes were far higher. The alliance of species that Cale had gathered stood behind them, unsure, nervous, but inspired by the humans' calm presence. Soldiers, strategists, and leaders looked to Cale for guidance, and he gave none verbally. His presence alone commanded attention. Their fleet is organized, Cale said quietly, studying the holographic map. But they rely on repetition and pattern. They will assume we act predictably. That is their mistake. We will use it against them, Lyra nodded. She had seen his methods before. Humans notice details others miss, adapt quickly, and act decisively. And the sword? She asked. Cale's hand rested lightly on the hilt. The sword is not just a weapon. It focuses precision, allows rapid reaction, and amplifies awareness. It is human ingenuity made tangible. The alien fleet moved closer, and alarms blared across the station. Ships in the Alliance readied weapons, forming a defensive perimeter. Yet Cale remained calm, his dark eyes scanning every movement. Every shift in energy signatures divide their attention. He instructed the leaders of allied ships. Some will engage head-on, drawing their focus. Others will move unpredictably. Timing is critical. Patience is critical. It was not easy. Many of the allied species relied on speed and brute force. Cale's insistence on observation, anticipation, and strategy challenged them. Some hesitated, questioning his methods. Lyra could feel the tension building, but Cale's quiet confidence held the room together. Now, he said softly, almost to himself, at his signal. The Alliance moved. Smaller strike teams darted unpredictably, forcing the alien fleet to react. Cale guided each movement with precision, predicting enemy maneuvers, anticipating counters. Ships that once struggled against the aliens' superior technology now struck with intelligence. Targeting weak points and exploiting gaps in shields, Lyra watched from the observation deck, heart pounding. The human at her side was orchestrating the battle like a conductor. But instead of music, the instruments were fleets of ships, energy weapons, and alien technology. Every move, Cale suggested, amplified human ingenuity, showing that strength was not measured only in power, but in thought, strategy, and courage. Below, Cale donned his sword. Stepping onto the platform of the command station's lower deck, alien drones descended, probing defenses. Cale moved with speed, precision, and foresight, dismantling the drones one by one. His movements were a blend of fluid motion and calculated strikes. Each swing of the sword deflected energy blasts, disabled mechanical systems, and inspired the nearby soldiers to act with newfound skill. Lyra could barely keep up with the action. Each moment revealed human potential in ways no alien could predict. Kale's calm focus, combined with the sword's energy amplification, made him nearly untouchable. Suddenly, the alien commander, the same massive entity Kale had faced, before he emerged from the flagship, its presence towering over the battlefield. Its glowing eyes scanned the chaos, calculating, relentless. Lyra's breath caught. The commander's movements were faster and more unpredictable this time. Kale faced it without hesitation. "Predictable patterns are their weakness," he said, drawing a deep breath. "Watch carefully." The commander attacked with devastating force, striking at Kale with a massive energy blade. Kale moved with human precision, dodging, parrying, and striking in perfect timing. The sword hummed with energy, responding to his thought, guiding his movements. Each strike Kale made was purposeful. He did not rely on strength alone. He relied on observation, speed, and understanding. The commander roared in frustration, unable to anticipate Kale's unpredictable counters. Drones nearby faltered, unsure of how to act without their leader's guidance. Lyra could see it. Clearly, humans were underestimated because their abilities were subtle. Strength was not always physical. Intelligence, focus, and courage could turn the tide of even the most overwhelming battle. Kale's attacks began to wear down the commander. Energy shields flickered, and systems failed. The alien's movements became less coordinated, more desperate. Kale struck with precision, exploiting every opening. Finally, with a powerful, deliberate motion, he disabled the commander's primary weapon systems. The alien fleet hesitated, its pattern broken. Allied ships pressed the advantage, striking with strategy rather than force alone. The tide had turned. Lyra's heart soared. Humans had shown what they were capable of, not just Kale, but every soldier, every strategist who had learned from him. The commander roared one last time before retreating to the flagship, signaling a withdrawal of the remaining alien forces. Drones scattered or powered down. The battle was over. Varelia and its allies had survived, and victory had been achieved not through sheer power, but through intelligence, courage, and human-led strategy. Lyra ran to Kale, her eyes shining. You did it. You saved everyone." Kale lowered the sword, calm and steady. "We did it. Humans are not alone. When we act together, observe carefully, and adapt, we can overcome much greater forces." The city below cheered. Citizens and soldiers alike hailed Kale as a hero, but he remained humble. "Strength is not just in one person," he said quietly. "It is in preparation, courage, and collaboration. Humanity survives and thrives because we combine these." Lyra smiled, proud. She had married a silent human who had once seemed ordinary, even fragile. Now she saw the truth. Kale embodied human potential, resilience, intelligence, and courage that could shape the course of galaxies. The council approached, expressions mixed with awe and respect. "Kale," one elder said, bowing slightly, "your actions have changed everything. Humans are no longer underestimated. You have shown us their true might." Kale nodded gently. "They were never weak. They were underestimated. That will not happen again." Later, Lyra and Kale stood on the palace balcony, watching the remaining alien ships retreat into the stars. The city was safe for now. Yet, the universe was vast and unpredictable. Other challenges awaited, but Lyra felt a deep confidence. Humanity, guided by courage, intelligence, and ingenuity, would be ready. "This is only the beginning," Kale said softly. "We have survived today. Tomorrow, we prepare for whatever comes next, and we will not be caught unprepared again." Lyra placed her hand on his shoulder, feeling the quiet strength that radiated from him. "You've shown them what it means to be human," she said. "Not just to survive, but to thrive." Kale smiled faintly. "Humans are more than survival. We adapt, we learn, we inspire. And when the time comes, we act. That is our power." As the twin suns of Varelia rose over the horizon, casting golden light across the recovering city, Lyra understood something profound. The galaxy would never see humans the same way again. A silent human, underestimated and overlooked. It changed everything. The alliance would grow stronger, the cities safer. Humanity's presence across the galaxy would no longer be doubted. Kale had shown the universe that humans were clever, brave, and unstoppable when united with purpose and courage. And as Lyra stood beside him, watching the stars, she realized the greatest victory was not just in battle, but in proving that humanity, silent, patient, and resilient, could shape the destiny of worlds. The universe had learned a new truth: never underestimate a human.